Hi, my name is Ixanavne, and this is my Week 1, Unit 5.2, Question 53, video assignment. Again, Question 53, my name is Ixanavne. We're told, if sine of t is negative 1 over 4, and t is in the third quadrant, find cosine of t. Again, let's talk about some rudimentary ratios within the unit circle that we need to know in order to solve this question. The first one is sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Next is cosine, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. And lastly is tangent, which is opposite over adjacent, but can also be sine over cosine. Let's put this into context with a triangle. Let's say we're using this side, and let's say we label our legs A and B, and our hypotenuse is C. Then, let's just say we're trying to find sine using this as our angle. Our sine is going to be opposite, which is B, over hypotenuse, which is C. So B over C. If we're trying to find our cosine, which is A, which is adjacent over hypotenuse, and our adjacent is A, and our hypotenuse is C, it's going to be A over C. And if we are trying to find our tangent, then we must do opposite over adjacent, which is B over A. That is how we can use the right triangle to find these different ratios. Next, let's talk a little bit about the unit circle. For the unit circle in specific, we have 4 different quadrants. We have quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. In the unit circle, specific coordinates on the unit circle are labeled using x, y. But it's important to note that the x correlates to the cosine and the y correlates to the sine. Set up for us here already, we see that in quadrant 1, both cosine and sine are positive. In quadrant 2, however, cosine is going to be negative, whereas sine is going to stay positive. In quadrant 3, both cosine and sine are going to be negative. And in quadrant 4, cosine will be positive and sine is going to be negative. But it's also important to remember that in quadrant 3, if we are trying to find the tangent, which is going to be negative sine over negative cosine, our negative x value, our negative y value over our negative x value, they're going to create a positive tangent. Keep that in mind. Next, let's solve our question. We're told that sine of t is negative 1 over 4, and t is in the third quadrant. Find cosine of t. Let's just draw a line out here. We don't know where it exactly goes to, but we can add another line here, which is we have 2 legs of a triangle, and we have our hypotenuse. Here is our right angle, and voila. We can now set up our ratios using this as our reference angle. Again, they tell us sine is negative 1 over 4. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, which is here, negative 1 over 4. But there's a problem. We don't know this third side, so we can just label it as B. Let's do the math here. Well, we need to first talk about the Pythagorean theorem, which tells us that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, we're given our hypotenuse, which is c squared, so 4 squared equals, well, we don't know what b is, so we can leave that as b squared. And a, we're given our a value, so that's just negative 1 squared. Well, negative 1 squared is negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1, plus b squared equals 16, because 4 squared is 16. Subtract 1, b squared is equal to 15. Let's take the square root of both sides, and we're left with b is equal to square root of 15. But remember, in the third quadrant, both cosine and sine are negative. That's why our b value is going to be negative square root of 15. But we're not done yet. The question asks us find cosine of t. Well, we know our t angle here is negative 1 over 4. We're asked to find what the cosine of t is. The cosine is going to be the adjacent over the hypotenuse, which is going to be the negative square root of 15 over our hypotenuse, which is 4. Therefore, cosine of t is negative 15 over 4. Thank you.